Today I'm going to take an old Larson 5/8 wave 2-meter antenna and I'm going to turn it into a 220 megahertz, which is a different amateur radio band for base station use. So I need to make myself a ground plane and cut the whip to a quarter wavelength, and put it all together, make a ground plane and mount it. Let's go and do it. I wasn't even going to bother shooting this today, but you know what the hell, I'll do it anyway. So what I want to do today is, this is an old, is it LM, what is this thing? LM150. This is an old 5H 2-meter antenna that used to be on my car at one point. I've got a dual band on there now, so this has been kind of redundant for the last, I don't know, 25, 30 years, I guess. Been just sitting around collecting dust. And what I'm going to do is I want to convert this into a dedicated 220 antenna for my 220 rig, so that I can have that connected as well as have my other 2-meter 440 radio connected to the dual band antenna. Rather than it's a tri-band radio. It's one I reviewed, but rather than use it for all three bands, I figured I'm an active ham, but I'm 99.3% of the time. I had a little plug-in for the radio station I listen to. 99% of the time I'm on 2 meters, or not 2 meters, 220. The only time you'll ever hear me on the 2-meter band locally is if I'm in my car. But if I'm operating at home, I'm generally on one of the 2-meter or one of the 220 repeaters, because you know we're a bunch of snobs and we kind of hide away from all the riffraff that the sea beers that have become VE7 RPT. So anyway, this is an old antenna. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this. I'm going to change the coax to a longer coax so that I can put it in the house. I got a roll of coax here. We're going to cut off the coax here, put a new one on, and I'm going to cut this down to about 12.5 inches. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out 12.5 inches. I'm going to score it with my hacksaw, and then we're going to cut it. We're going to score it and snap it. So let me just measure this off. I'm going to get my Allen key here wherever I did with it. I know I've got one here somewhere. We're going to remove, well, first of all, we'll remove the whip. I've already loosened this off. So we'll remove the whip from the coil. The coil's not going to be needed because I'm going to cut it to a quarter wave and make up some ground planes. So we're going to remove the whip. And I'm going to cut this to 12.5 inches approximately. So I've got a tape measure here. So I'm going to cut this whip to 12.5 inches. Let me get my hacksaw on here. We're going to score it. This could take a while, but I'm going to score it, and we're going to snap this off, and when I'm done, we'll have a 12.5 inch whip. Through the magic of television, I have a 12.5 inch whip. And if you're wondering why I was able to do that so quick, well, that's because I already pre-cut this. The other piece you saw me just taking off there, that was the rest of the antenna. But I already cut the end off of it for 12.5 inch. And then I decided, you know what, let's film this thing. So if it looks like it was kind of staged, it kind of was, because I already pre-cut this before turning on the camera. Anyway, the rest of it we'll do live. So I'm going to take off the whip. We're going to put this back on here just so that I get the height. So I can drop the whip in here approximately to the right height. We can tune this later, but it's not all that critical. I've just cut it about where we're going to need it to be. There we go. Tighten that on. So we're not going to need this LM150 coil because this is for 2 meters. I don't even know if it works. It's been so long since this one's been used. I've already loosened this off too, so we're going to remove this. Basically what's going to happen is and I've already cut off the heat shrink there. Basically what's going to happen is I'm going to put some ground plane on here. I'll fasten the ground plane below, and this is going to screw onto here, and I'm going to have my ground radios coming out from this bracket, from below this bracket. So we'll make that out of copper wire. I'll just use some ground wire for that. I'm sure that'll be adequate. So gasket gasket goes on the base of this thing. There's another one here, by the way, to stop it from shorting out. And I think we're okay here. So what I need to do now is I'm going to take this coax off. As you can see, the reason why this antenna wasn't working, the coax, this was when it was on the car, it is completely severed right around the connection. So there was no ground connection here at all. So this had to be repaired. Regardless whether I was going to retune it or not, this wouldn't work even for 2 meters because this was, of course, worn out and it broken. So I'm going to take this center conductor out here, pull it through here. I may have to open this up a bit. This will all be soldered back on when I'm done. Take that one off. I just got to get this. I got to get this piece out from there, and we'll take off the remainder of the shield there. We're going to resolder this back on, but I got to get this open so that I can do that. Okay, so the little short piece of cable that was on there before, that just went to my, to say it was really short because it just went from in my old car, it just went around the door and into the car, and I kept the cable as short as possible. I've got a new longer cable because this is going to be mounted on the house. And where's the end of the cable here? Somewhere there's the end of this cable. So basically what I need to do is I need to expose enough cable so that I can connect it there and connect it down to the ground. So I'm going to use my scalpel with the hands of a surgeon and proceed to take my fingertip off. These things are ridiculously sharp and it'll cut through that insulation like a hot knife through butter. Okay, now I've got the braid off. What I need to do is I need to now remove the braid from about there to the end. So I'm going to use my scalpel to cut through the braid. I'm getting a bit concerned about the music in the background, even though it's so faint. I could barely hear it when I'm in the shop, but it's coming across on microphone a lot louder. And now that the Beatles are playing, I'm getting a bit nervous. My neighbor playing the Beatles pretty loud. I hope that's not going to cause me any problems with YouTube, because I can certainly hear it, and if I can hear it, the camera can hear it. So I'm going to try and talk over this because I don't know who's got their stereo playing loud today, but somebody has their music. They're enjoying their music today loud, and it's drifting in from outside. I guess if I close my garage door, it might reduce it a bit, but then it's going to get hot as hell in here. So we'll just have to persevere with Love Me Do playing in the background, and I'll try and talk over it so that I don't have to. I may have to put some music in the background over this. I apologize, but I'll see what it sounds like. But when I edit this, if I hear the Beatles playing in the background, I'm going to have to do something, because otherwise I will get an instant takedown on this video, and I will not be very happy when that happens. And that has happened before, from incidental music in the background from some inconsiderate neighbor who's got his stereo turned just a little bit too loud. I wonder which neighbor that is. Okay, which sounds about right, because I've got some boomers next to me. I'm one to talk, right? Probably the same age as me, and they listen to the same music as me too, because I've certainly been known to listen to the Beat Brothers from time to time. Okay, we're going to remove the insulation from the very tip of it here to expose the conductor, again using my ridiculously sharp and overqualified scalpel to do this, just because I'm a sucker for punishment and looking to take my fingertips off. One of these days I might just do that. Okay, next I'll remove the old solder from the mount, and this should also remove all the rust and stuff that's on there. So what we've got here is this little well in the back here. This is where we solder the wire into. That's what makes the connection. So first I'm going to put some solder on the end of the wire here, just to tin it. I may not have to put any flux in this just because there is a well here to put the wire into. A little bend in the end of the wire there. Get some solder on there to attach the ground. We'll check for continuity and shorts. So continuity, got continuity there into the center tip and no shorts. And from the shield, we have continuity here. So good connection. Now time to make the ground plane. Each of the 3 ground radios should be about 14.02 inches. So we're going to cut the insulation on this number 10 ground wire at the 14-inch mark. I'm going to make a 3 radial ground plane that I can attach to this antenna, to this base, and that should give me a good ground. It's harder to work with this than it is with the antenna, with the coax, because this stuff is quite stiff, being solid wire and all. Might have better luck with the snips to take this insulation off here for about 1 inch or so of wire. Okay, I'm going to measure off another 14 inches here and cut the wire. So I'm about 14 inches from the end to here. So this is my 14 inches, 14 and a half right there. Measure off another 14 or so inches from here, and that gets me to right about there. We'll cut the wire here. Take about 1 inch of insulation off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to wrap it around here and then solder it. So we'll create a hook in the end of the wire, like that, so that I can take it around this wire, crimp it, and then solder it. So I'm going to solder the wires just to make sure I've got a good solid bond. I'm going to drill a hole with the self-drilling screw through the steel bracket if I can, without taking my finger off in the process. Just want to get through it a little bit, and then I'm going to put another screw in the other side. I think that's through. So I'm going to put one of these bigger screws through from this side and use that to secure the ground wire on the bracket in here like this. So that will secure my ground wire for my ground plane. Now if I take my coax, feed my coax through here, center the clamp, and then tighten it down, and then put the antenna on it, and then it should be ready for mounting. So that's on. Now I just need to tighten this down. Screw the whip on. Voila! Instant quarter wave antenna with a ground plane. Converted a mobile antenna into a 220 ground plane antenna, and I can just bend the wires down like that and attach my antenna up on the roof. And now I have a 220 quarter wave ground plane antenna. For you guys that wondered what I used to drill through that steel bracket, this is a self-drilling screw. But I didn't use this one because it's quite long. I wanted a short one. So I just used this to actually tap, to drill through and start to tap the hole. And then I used a regular screw at that point. I only managed to put a little hole in my bench here. There's my little 220 radio there. And I can key up and get the repeater coming back, full quieting. Excellent. This is actually a tri-band radio, but I'm only going to use this for 220 as I have another dual band. So I just set the other frequency to the second. So we have a few 220 repeaters around here, so I can monitor multiple ones. But yeah, great. I'm getting full quieting now. I probably can hit them at low power instead of high. I'll have to switch this to low power and see. But with a proper 220 antenna mounted up nice and high, it's working. So I'm happy. Project complete. If you're wondering, there it is, right up at the peak of the roof, top of the second story. I know I gotta get out there and paint. Oh, I got a wasp problem. I can see that now. Those cables go up to my antennas for my various ham radios. Here's another one up here. This is the one I was using. It's my dual band antenna. And then I have, in the back here I have an HF antenna, which I don't use. Somewhere back there is a tower with a beam on it, but unfortunately the neighbor's tree has grown right up into the antenna, making it completely useless. So I just deal with my dipoles and these ones here on the roof. And of course the new one up there, which will get the job done. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon. 73s to all hams out there.
The turbocharger must be clogged in this car because the turbo lag is a little more noticeable.
So there's my 220 radio. Somebody's driving around his car talking about his turbocharger. And then right next to it here, there's another classic. I don't see too many of these ones around anymore. I have a few other radios around here too. They're not hooked up at the moment. Got an HF radio, but don't have it currently hooked up due to the noise problem on trying to receive anything. It's all I hear static.